Who are we? Where have we come from? And where are we going? This is the experience of all humanity. And in China, it is exceptionally prevalent, as the changes faced over the last century have seen a society brought through wars and revolutions, from poverty to stability, into the country as it is today. The Chinese dream, a term popularized by Xi Jinping, is to work and contribute to the revitalization of the nation. This is much like the American dream, only more collective in nature. But to me, there is another rendition of a Chinese dream. The dream is an apt analogy for China because not only does it indicate a vision of the future, it also hints to the messy and forgotten past that is never eradicated. Despite the amazing strides in social mobility, there are still inarguably two Chinas. One is cosmopolitan, middle class, and affluent. The other is often forgotten, financially stagnant in comparison, and feels both the pulls of tradition and modernity. Rural China makes up roughly 40% of the population, and the quality of life differs vastly depending on geography, with some areas relatively developed, while some areas fail to provide basic needs such as running water and transportation. It is a China seldom experienced by tourists or visitors, but there are still parts of the country that hold on to a way of life while also feeling the call of this modern dream. Director Bi Gan explores the life of rural China in his two films, Kaili Blues and Long Day's Journey into Night. Set in his hometown of Kaili, Kaili Blues features local residents in most of the acting roles, bringing its realistic portrayal of rural China to all the areas of production, from scenery to language to ethnicity. The story follows a man's journey to find his nephew, whose father has sold him into forced servitude. Chen is a criminal turned doctor for his small rural community, a community which Bi does not try to make pretty or romantic, and instead honestly shows us the situation in which people live. Buildings collapsed, power cuts, no running water, but also nature and human interaction in a place where entertainment is limited. Chen searches the countryside, interacting with places and people that are seemingly forgotten, however stable and getting by with what they have. There is an old-fashioned element to this China that's a far cry from what we see regularly. CRT screens playing videos, the tape cassettes narrating through poems or proverbs, the old arcade machines, the lack of obvious smartphone use, traditional health treatments, and mentions of a mythical wild man appearing all paint a picture of a rural way of life so different from that of the cities. The New York Times described the film as partly a meditation on grappling with ancient traditions in a modern China, as well as an outline of one man's regrets. We get to witness this grappling between old and modern as we see snippets of this rural life and evidence of its decline as these areas are to be modernized. Regeneration and modernization are the big projects across rural China, and many regions face complete overhaul as plans to regenerate and upgrade the countryside are given priority by policymakers. Chen's journey leads him to Dangmai, a very small community in the middle of nowhere, where we follow a 41-minute take through the lush green valleys, weaving in and out of different characters, meeting the Miao ethnic minority, a young band as they set up for their evening gig, a young man bullied by the local gang, and a young woman whose dreams of being a tour guide in nearby Kaili is her ticket out of this way of life. We also get to witness the kindness of strangers helping Chen get from A to B. We also see local commerce, an old lady's noodle stand, the seamstress and clothes washing service run by the hopeful tour guide, the pool club, the barbers, the boatman, the toy seller, and a music concert. During this journey, Chen's reality begins to drift between past, present, and future in a dreamlike fashion. A past, present, and future that we see represented in Chinese society and economic goals. There are repeated references to clocks and time, moving forward inevitably, despite this setting seemingly standing still. And I think this sums up a lot of development in rural China, for me at least. Things seem concrete, never changing, but time moves on, and whether people like it or not, things will change. This theme is picked up again in Bi's next film, Long Day's Journey into Night. As Luo attempts to dive into the memories of past love, he discovers that things were not quite as he thought. Perception and reality seem to blend together in a confusing and mesmerizing dream. The film's climax, like Kaili Blues, sees Luo taking a long journey forward, dealing with his past while accepting the future as he travels inevitably into night. The night that features heavily in both of Bi's films as the ending, but also the beginning of the next steps in the characters' journeys. Luo has an infatuation with his past, wanting to cling onto it without properly understanding it.
那时候觉得快要忘记他的时候，就会梦到他。
你爱呢
38，但我连他真实的名字、年龄都不晓得，甚至他以前的事都一点都不了解。
Variety's Maggie Lee writes that every person Luo gets entangled with may be imaginary or unreliable reconstructions of the past. The clinging on to a feeling or emotion can be a byproduct of modernization worldwide, and in China the pace of modernization has led to huge rifts in cultures between old and young, traditional and modern, and rural and urban environments. It's also a feeling of confusion. How did we get here? And where are we going? Bi shows us the construction, demolition, and remodeling of these environments. Dilapidated shells of buildings set for regeneration, but meanwhile work and life continue. Entrepreneurship is still going on without the infrastructure of the cities. The pool club, the casino, cinema, the singers, the community entertainment of music and shows, people living in conditions that are a far cry from the booming dream of middle-class China. Long Day's Journey into Night is a continuation of the themes Bi began exploring in Kaili Blues. However, where this film differs is its romantic interest, a romance that is confusing, hypnotic, and intense. Tang Wei, who plays the woman in green, also plays the woman at the end of the story. The audience are left unsure as to whether these two characters are the same woman, as she's not aged since their last meeting many years ago. Maybe this is indicative of tradition within modernity. While she dresses in the clothes of her different eras, she has not aged like Luo has, and is at home in both of these environments, with many years ahead of her.
电影和记忆最大的区别就是，电影肯定是假的，是由一个又一个的镜头组成的，而记忆分不出真假。
As Wendy-eyed of The Guardian writes, there is no hard and fast correct interpretation of the elliptical enigma of the story. Appreciation depends on the audience's ability to let go and drift with the flow, which is, in my opinion, the only way one can experience the forever impossible to understand part of the world we call China. It is a dream. Not because it's a representation of perfection, far from it, but because it's as difficult to grasp and hold on to as a dream is. A mixture of truth and lies, perception and reality, old and new, that are all on a journey together out of one dream and into another.